a lot of suitors after Dominic Solanke. Solanke is being tapped up by a number of Premier League clubs, but as Bill Foley has quite clearly said, during this window, the door is bolted shut, and there's only likely to be one player who could potentially leave the club. Of course, we know who that is because of the contract situation. It might be Lloyd Kelly. Hopefully, fingers crossed, though, the club are working on that. And hopefully, fingers crossed, Lloyd stays at the club. I think he does have something definitely to offer, in the situation of injuries, and, can certainly play in that centre of defence as well. But let's talk about Dom. So Dom is an all-round striker, and I will play a clip in a moment because I was invited onto the Talksport show with Majestic and Alan Pardew, of course, the former West Ham manager. And West Ham, funny enough, are one of the clubs being mentioned in the pursuit of Dominic Solanke, as is Arsenal and as is Newcastle United. Of course, Eddie Howe has made an inquiry about Dom's availability and the cost. But hopefully, fingers crossed, our former manager has been turned away at the front door by Bill Foley. And like Bill Foley has said, nobody is for sale. So what is Dominic Solanke, and why is he such a valuable player to us? So if you go back to our previous time in the Premier League, we spent 5 seasons there. Dominic Solanke was a bit part player in those final couple of campaigns. Now the thing with Dom was that he does track back. He's an all-round striker, but at that time he wasn't prolific in getting the goals and putting the ball in the back of the net. Whereas now, this is where his stake has really risen, because, he will... he's a fantastic striker. He's an all-rounder. He'll drop back. He'll get Phil Billing in, get Justin Kluivert in there as well. We have got so much creativity in those positions that Dominic Solanke-less forward line is probably unthinkable at this moment in time. I'll explain, if Dom was to leave, what the situation and the resolution might be. But, he is a goal scorer now. He is, on fire. This season he's been absolutely outstanding. And, long may that continue. But, every player's got their price. I do get that. Every player's got their price. And to AFC Bournemouth, Dominic Solanke has no doubt got his price to us as well. But the situation is that Bill Foley is hunting, and searching for something that is going to progress this football club. And by selling Dominic Solanke, it leaves us, a little bit light and chasing our tails in who to get in. That could lead to a bit of a drop-off in the second part of the season. Wouldn't it be good to get into some Europe, for example? I am sceptical about Europe, because the thing is you look at the amount of teams throughout the years who have got into Europe and then stuttered. Probably the best example is Ipswich Town all those years ago, where they got into Europe. I think they finished 5th in the Premier League. And, I remember watching a game, I think it was against Inter Milan. I might be wrong on that. I haven't checked it. I haven't fact-checked that. But, that same season, they got relegated. And that is the problem, is European football does take a toll on the side, and you do need that strength in depth. So that's why I'm saying, Dominic Solanke, is a key player for the rest of this season. We don't want to sell him. We're not going to sell him. The door's shut. Everybody bog off, including yourself, Eddie, as well. Because, as much time as I've got for Eddie Howe, at the end of the day, Dominic Solanke is an AFC Bournemouth player, and he is vital to our aspirations. But I tell you what, let's play this clip, because it'll be quite interesting to hear what Alan Pardew thinks. So here is the clip from Talksport.
The Talksport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the Talksport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search Talksport Fan Network.
So the VAR, good day for VAR yesterday. There was no VAR, but it was a good day in terms of, perhaps it does level the playing field a little bit.
Absolutely. Don't forget 03717 223344. Craig's a Bournemouth fan. He joins us. A lot of people trying to tout his player Solanke. I'm sure he's got something to say about that. Good evening, Craig.
Good evening, Majestic. Good evening, Alan. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, Craig.
Very well. Craig, Solanke, how good is he?
He's fantastic. He's a really, really good player. What he does is, like Alan said earlier on, he tracks back. He gets involved. He brings other players into it, brings in Bill in, brings in Cliver. He is an all-round forward. He isn't a poacher. He's not somebody who will sit there. He will drop back. Sometimes that means that, he's not in the position that you want him to be in at that time. However, he creates so much more. And I honestly, and this is something that's come from Bill Foley, we're closed really for business. There's only one player, which is Lloyd Kelly, who is likely to be leaving the club. Maybe Kiefer Moore.
Listen,
on loan somewhere.
Craig, listen. The one thing I do know about clubs who are not in the top six is that there's never a closed deal. Trust me. That doesn't mean that you might not lose Solanke. And you're doing a good job of selling him, by the way.
I know.
I'm wondering if you actually are a Bournemouth fan.
Or his agent, Craig.
Yeah.
I am. But I think he is. I think he's fantastic. He's an all-round player.
Craig, is he a top six player?
Yes.
There you go.
We will lose him at one point, and that is without a shadow of a doubt. But during this window, I think Bill Foley will stand firm.
Let's get Bill Foley on the phone. Bill, are you going to stand firm when that 60 million bid comes in?
Well, you know what? 60 million's not enough.
Okay.
Wow.
It's
okay,
not
there
enough.
you go.
I think for a player like Solanke, who's an all-rounder,
yeah. I think historically, the one thing that managers and coaches, we talk about Solanke, I've talked about him when I was at Crystal Palace, etc., was would he get goals? Because he does everything else. And now, of course, he does get goals. So now you have got a really nice rounded footballer. And if his agent wants to put me into 2% of the deal, I'm quite happy.
03717 223344.
And Craig deserves 2% as well.
Craig deserves a couple of percentage there. You listen to the final word here on Talksport. Still to come, we're going to be talking about those transfer rumours that are flying around. And Timo Werner coming to Tottenham Hotspur. What's that all about? It's the final word here on Talksport.
So there we are. You've heard it there. Do let us know if you think, that AFC Bournemouth will stick, by our stance, and that Dominic Solanke is not going to be leaving this football club this season. Or if you feel, like Alan, that Bill Foley, if the money's put in front of him, could potentially choke and go, right, okay, that's enough. I think it's going to be the former, which is good. Because the reason being is that we don't need to sell. We don't need to sell. Yes, in the long run, Bill Foley did have an interview the other day on an American sports station. And the thing was he did make it quite clear that, we do need to sell to bring in better players and, or to bring in money effectively to keep funding the club. A bit like that Brighton model. There is rumours that we are going to be following down that path and, we'll cover that off as well. But, personally, I do think that Dominic Solanke will stay. Where will he go in the long run? I think he'll go to a top six side. I think Newcastle, you could fairly say, are probably one of those. I think Manchester United are probably the team that will fall out of the top six. Potentially Chelsea as well. Chelsea do look a little bit shaky. So it's going to be one of those two. I say Manchester United because I just don't think that Chelsea are investing in the youth. Manchester United aren't really looking particularly very good at the moment. And I do wonder what their new owner, Jim Radcliffe, can actually really do in the interim. And plus, I think they're probably going to be, well, I think both the clubs, Chelsea and Man United, will be looked at on FFP reasons. You've got to. If you're going to look at Everton, for example, that's a story for another day. But do we expect more bids for Dominic Solanke? Without a shadow of a doubt. He has been prolific this season. He's been fantastic in every game that he's played. I'm struggling to think of a game where he's been poor, personally. I think, really, Gareth Southgate should be looking at Dominic Solanke and going, right, okay, there is a man who is the future. A little bit like Alex Scott as well. Somebody who is going to be the future of English football. Somebody who, these players, Alex Scott as well, is another player that we're not going to be able to keep hold of, long term. However, what we do have is we've got an outstanding player that can take us forwards, and then at the right time, we sell him to whoever. But Bill Foley is quite clear. The door is bolted shut, unless you're coming after Lloyd Kelly, in which case we don't know how that contract situation's going. Hopefully it's going well. But, at the same time, I think, it's a case of, let's see where we go to. I think we're going to have to strengthen up front. If we keep Dominic Solanke anyway, which we will do, but I think we need to strengthen up front because, the other player who I did mention in that Talksport clip is Kiefer Moore. Kiefer Moore is being looked at by a number of sides. I think in the Championship he would do a job. He probably do. Do you know what the perfect team is for him? Everton. And the reason being is they're a long ball team. They'll get balls into the box to try and find his head. Whereas AFC Bournemouth, we like to play it around, play it on the ground. It's not the sort of style of football for Kiefer Moore. Kiefer Moore is a slower player, but he is a poacher. Dominic Solanke is not that. He'll drop back and, get Clivert involved, Christie involved, whoever. You name them. Billing, you name them. Solanke and Billing have been an absolutely excellent partnership up front. So, yeah, he is not going nowhere. You've heard it here. Dominic Solanke is staying at AFC Bournemouth until at least the summer. Hopefully we can keep him beyond the summer. I question whether or not we will be able to, because I think the money men will be in force at that time. We'll probably get more if we can hold out to that time as well, especially if we've qualified for Europe, which, to be honest, we have to pinch ourselves. As a football club, of this size, if AFC Bournemouth was to qualify for European football, well, absolutely outstanding story. Let us know what you think. Let us know. Remember to like, subscribe, all that jazz as well. Let us know what you think about Dominic Solanke. But Solanke is here to stay. Everybody else, clear off. Solanke is a cherry through and through.